Welcome to Gaia's Calling, where stories ignite your spirit and the earth whispers her secrets. I'm Brad Swift, a Right on Purpose author of eco-fiction and nonfiction, inviting you to become an eco-guardian. Together, let's explore the wonders of our world and take action to protect them. Listen closely. Gaia is calling. And yes, today's Gaia's Call is a bit different. I'm kind of continuing the One Cause series itself, but I'm adding into it a different twist, what I'm now referring to as purposeful politics. Not a lot, but from time to time. And today is one of those times. So let's go ahead and dig into a thank you note to President Trump and a wake-up call for democracy. The lessons that we can take from Trump's rise isn't fear, it's responsibility. I had an unsettling thought over the weekend. What if the real reason democracy is slipping away isn't because of corruption or political polarization or even misinformation, but because we, the people, have just become too lazy to care? Maybe we don't really want the responsibility of governing ourselves anymore. Maybe we'd rather just hand it over to someone like Trump, someone who tells us we don't have to think, we don't have to decide, we don't have to engage because he'll take care of it for us. And when I shared this with my wife, and she took a different perspective. Here's what she said. She said, it's really not laziness. She said, it's resignation. People have given up because they know the system doesn't work for them. They've been beaten down by a government that seems to serve only the wealthy and powerful, and they've realized they have almost no influence over it. It's not that they don't care. It's that they no longer believe their participation will make a difference. Yeah, well, I've thought for many years, over 3 decades, that I was married to a very wise woman, and she's definitely demonstrated that. Maybe we're both right. Maybe the truth is some toxic mix of the two. Resignation feeding complacency. Complacency reinforcing resignation until we find ourselves exactly where we are now. A nation deeply divided, uncertain of its future, and flirting with authoritarianism. And that's why I think Donald Trump deserves our thanks. Not for his leadership, no. Not for his policies, definitely not. But for making it undeniably clear that freedom and democracy are not free. They require an investment. Not another campaign contribution, but something more valuable, our time and our attention. Not just during the elections, but regularly. Like the old saying, brushing your teeth if you want to keep them. So, here's a short thank you note to Donald Trump. Dear Mr. Trump, thank you for waking us up. Thank you for making it painfully obvious that democracy doesn't run on autopilot. You have shown us that when we disengage, the loudest, most self-serving voices will fill the void. You have demonstrated that if we don't actively participate, the system will default to serving those who crave power above all else. And you have made it clear that we must choose between passive resignation and active responsibility. And for that wake-up call, we owe you our gratitude. Sincerely, we the people. The realization that changed everything. Like many people, I've had fleeting thoughts over the years. Maybe I should run for office. Maybe I should do more. But just as quickly, my mind would produce so many different reasons why that's a bad idea. Politics, oh man, it's messy, it's exhausting, it's corrupt. I wouldn't stand a chance. But here's the thing. we don't all have to become politicians. That's never been the point of democracy. The point is that we must become responsible and caring citizens. I know, radical idea, right? Yeah, that was a sarcasm. But somehow, in the daily noise of our lives, we've forgotten it. The question is, what does responsible citizen even look like? And more importantly, how do we make it part of our daily lives so that democracy doesn't just survive, but can one day thrive again? So let's bring in the one cause perspective to democracy. For those unfamiliar, one cause, and there's a link on my Substack for that, is a framework for understanding and solving the biggest crisis facing humanity, which is not just climate change, but the deep systemic patterns of thought that have led us to climate change and the climate crisis. It's based on two core ideas. Number one, the four great untruths. The false beliefs that have shaped human civilization and caused immense destruction. And secondly, the four great truths. The alternative principles that can guide us towards a regenerative, sustainable future. So, let's apply these to democracy. First, the four great untruths in politics. 1, separation. The untruth is we are divided. That's not true. We must fight to win. My side versus your side. Sound familiar? Number 2, scarcity. There's not enough for everyone, so we must hoard power and resources. Untruth. Number 3, unquestioned growth. Winning at all costs is more important than the well-being of the whole. Oh, and by the way, that includes our species as well as nature and Earth. And untruth number 4, domination. Leadership is about control, not service or stewardship. Any of that sound familiar? These are the foundations of our current political dysfunction, the driving forces behind gridlock, corruption, and the erosion of trust. These are the great untruths that have led us to the brink of this existential crisis of humankind. At least this is what I invite you to try on and consider. Just try it on. So let's look at the four great truths as a path forward. 1, interconnection. Consider, we are not separate. Democracy only works when we recognize that we have a shared fate. Number 2, sufficiency. We don't need to hoard power or resources. A thriving society provides enough for all when we remember how to share. Number 3, the great truth of reciprocity. Leadership should be about service, the giving and receiving that supports and care for all. And great truth number 4, stewardship. Democracy is something we must tend to, not something to exploit. When we shift from the four great untruths to the four great truths, democracy transforms from a battleground into a living system, one that requires care, participation, and a long-term vision. Okay, so what comes next? Well, consider the investment we must make. So if democracy is like brushing our teeth, what does that daily habit look like? Here are some small but meaningful ways we can reinvest in it. Number 1, become news literate. News literate. Take responsibility for consuming diverse, fact-based, underline bold letters, fact-based information, not just whatever confirms your biases. And here are a couple resources to consider. One is 1440 newsletter, and there's a link in the Substack. The 1440 newsletter is a daily digest that curates and summarizes the day's most significant stories across various topics, including politics, business, and culture. It aims to present news without bias, allowing readers to form their own opinions. In fact, Media Bias / Fact Check rates 1440 as the least biased, noting its balanced stories selection and minimal editorializing. Knew I was going to stumble over that one. However, it's important to note that 1440 it aggregates news from other sources rather than conducting original reporting. The second option, Associated Press. Yeah, the ones that were banned from the White House. The Associated Press is a long-standing news organization known for its commitment to fast, accurate, and mostly unbiased news reporting across the formats. With journalists in nearly 100 countries and all 50 U.S. states, AP emphasizes accurate, fact-based, non-partisan reporting. Its reputation for neutrality makes it a reliable source for staying informed. Now, what else can we do? How about engage in conversations? Talk with people outside your political bubble. Remember, in such conversations, it's important to seek understanding, not just victory. And yes, I'm including that to remind myself of this important point. Number 3, show up locally. Attend a city council meeting. Volunteer for a cause or support local candidates who align with regenerative values. Next, support the shift. Help change the conversation about fear-based reaction to future-based creation. That's how we make politics purposeful again. And last of all, learn how democracy is supposed to work. In my days, in the good old days, students were required to take courses like civics. And no, they were not a favorite for most of us, certainly not mine. But they did provide a foundation for becoming responsible citizens. And it's not too late to teach ourselves. So, final thought. This is our moment. Trump's rise wasn't an accident. It was a reflection of where we had already drifted as a society. Disengaged, disconnected, resigned. But here's the good news. If our inaction helped create this moment, our actions can transform it. Democracy is still ours to reclaim. The future is still ours to build. The question is whether we'll take that responsibility or let it slip away. What will you choose? And let's talk about it. What's one small way you're willing to reinvest into democracy today? Drop a comment, as well as share this with someone who needs to hear it. And this is Brad Swift, signing off.